So let's talk about what the heritage area is. So if somebody says, what is that big brown sign over the Kenosha Pass, you'll have some idea of what to tell them. So we also looked for a theme. What did I do? Go away. There we go. That's pretty much the South Park, as you guys might already have seen. I love this aerial. Good use of drones, don't you think? And to give you an idea, as you can see the outline here of where it goes, just kind of figure pass to pass to pass. There's a little bit that goes down into Lake George, comes down, does not quite include Guffey, and does not include you guys. I wasn't involved with the selection of the boundaries. My choice would have been a little bit different. But that's the way it's laid out now, and it'll literally take an act of Congress for the rest of Park County to be part of it. But it doesn't mean we can't do it. So if you really, really want to be part of the heritage area, it can be done. It just takes a long time. And what is it all about? The historic, ranching, mining, wildlife. Not all the wildlife is huge. The natural resources, again, the natural resources of what we have here. This is, you're looking at edge of Mount Lincoln there, on the side of Mount Ross. And it's about people. Several years ago, before the heritage area even happened, and that's one of the reasons it happened, was because obviously Park County is very focused on its historic resources. We all moved here by choice. Nobody moved here for the job. We moved here for the lifestyle. And then we figure out how to make money. And sometimes we're good at it, sometimes not so great. But we look out and we see nice scenery and life is good. But one of the things that happens with folks in Park County is the volunteerism is huge. People come together. This building is actually owned. It's the Buckley Ranch. It's owned by the Department of Wildlife. They bought the ranch for the fishing rights. They have these historic buildings on there. Don't really care about the historic buildings on there. So many years ago, the South Park building class, excuse me, and these volunteers stabilized that building. At this point, it still doesn't have a use, and I've been nagging a little bit, so maybe I can nag some more.
When was it built?
That one was 1880s. And it's got the potential still of being something. I've even got started, and then that person with the Park Service went away, about seeing if we could make this a location where we could start training returning veterans on historic preservation. Many times the returning veterans can't go back into wherever they left. An office situation is not necessarily right for all of them. And the being able to go at the end of the day and say, this is finished. So I'm looking at being able to have a program, start with this, redo it, and then that be the lodging for that veterans program. And with all the titles, I'm still working on trying to make that happen. And working with the military is not necessarily the easiest. Once again, I touched that, didn't I? Look at that. The National Heritage Areas. They are created by Congress, and they're places committed to protecting and promoting the cultural, historical, natural resources. Most of the heritage areas that started about 30 years ago have one theme. The Civil War, the Revolutionary War. Detroit is the auto industry. There's a couple that are devoted to canals. And when we started doing this study to find out, okay, we know, and it was the Park Service that came to us and said, you need to be a heritage area. And I think they were originally talking about the natural resources. But the more we looked, the more themes that we found out we had. So we're just a little bit different than most of them. We're still talking about when the organization of the directors come to South Park. That should be a lot of fun. We've been going to Washington, D.C. and some of the big cities. Wouldn't it be fun to bring them out here? There's only 49 in the United States, and we are one of them. And here's our qualifications. The geography, the natural attributes, the prehistory, which goes back 12,000 years. Gold, it's a microcosm of Western expansion. It's just what we do here is what the whole West did. The settlements that are still here. Railroading history, ranching, mining, water issues. Boy, are we the epitome of water issues. Historic preservation efforts that have already been happening since well before Heritage Area was even thought about. Protection of the natural resources, which is a big program here, and thanks to Gary Nichols for moving forward with that still. He is working for the county part-time, he didn't go away. I just took the tourism part. Our recreation opportunities and the quality of life. Come on. Oh, back to that again, okay. Quick, go away. Natural resources. And mankind has summered here for over 10,000 years. We know it's more like 12,000 years. As a matter of fact, so far as we can tell, until the miners came, and then the ranchers came. The miners, when it started getting cold, went back down to Denver. But when the ranchers came, they stayed all year. Before that, for 12,000 years, nobody stayed in the winter up here. Just us crazy people, right? So it's been really interesting because when they left everything. What we found with that 12,000-year-old weaponry, points, material, has been on the surface. There's been no dig. So heaven only knows what else we can find. Our mining resources is the Paris Mill. Park County owns it now. We are working on rehabilitating that. All of the equipment is inside. I'm hoping that someday we will have you all there and you get to see what all is going on with it. It's shut down right now. This is the North London mine. That's fair play. And if you look at it, it's not all that different, is it? South Park City. Again, the history of the railroading. This is the Hartselle depot that is on private land. Unfortunately, I can't do anything with it until I have cooperation of the owner. And it's killing me to go by. We're still ranching. We're ranching buffalo now. The buffalo are back. This is a different variety than what we had here. We had the mountain buffalo, and Hoosier Pass was not really a road. It was a buffalo trace. So if you can imagine herds of buffalo coming up over Hoosier Pass. We still have the dredge. It's on private property too. I've had about four or five different times that I thought we almost had that where we could have a tourism attraction for this. The water is the most important thing to all of us. This happens to be Montgomery Reservoir, and there's one of the reasons the water is important. The fishing is amazing. Wildlife, you haven't seen anything until you've seen the 2,000 head herd come down through the South Park. Mountain biking, recreation. But the thing about a heritage area is, think of a national park that they did not buy. In other words, somebody had to buy all the other national parks. Then they had to staff it with people, teach them the history, and run it that way. Somebody at the Park Service said, wait a minute, we've still got history, and it's important. So why don't we take an area, designate an area. People still live there. History is still being made. It didn't stop at what point the park came in. And we'll work with the people who live there. So that's the whole premise of a heritage area. It's like a park where people still live and still make the decisions. So we did take a lot of surveys. We found out that the residents wanted to preserve, protect, and interpret, but they also wanted to enjoy their own lifestyle. So that means walking a thin line. Do we want to bring in the South Park cartoon park, or what do we want to do? And what they said was, we're willing to share this, but we want to share it with people who can appreciate what we've got and not try to manufacture something to drag people in. So we have preserving the land, preserving the buildings. And one of the questions that kept popping up, well, is development going to encroach on the South Park? Not too likely. One of the studies, I loved that one. But 2030, we're supposed to have 50,000 people. Ain't gonna happen. We don't have the water, we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the resources to bring that many people into the South Park. You guys have the area that can make that increase in the retail into the industries because the infrastructure can come here. The South Park is going to be pretty much like it is. We might, if everything went great, by 2030, we might have something like 21,000 people. Right now we have 16, and that's counting you guys. One of the things that I noticed when I first got here, I was kind of hornswoggled into writing for the Summit Daily. And every time I went over the hill, the editor would say, boy, I hope you have something else to do to come all the way over from Fairplay to Breckenridge. And I'm going, do you know how many people make that trip every day? And if it closed down, you wouldn't have anybody to cook for you. So their vision, that pass is a barrier. They're, as far as they're concerned, they went back 100 years when they went over that pass, which is a good thing for us. They can develop all they want to, and then they can come and play over here. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at it with all the way around us. Our biggest income, besides construction, in the county is tourism. Usually heritage tourism. The guys that even, you know, the hardcore bicyclists still are oriented to that natural resource, that heritage. So there's still that mindset that we do want to have. They can come and appreciate where they're coming. The same thing's true of everybody that you guys are reaching out for. They are attracted to this place for what we actually have here. We're able to offer the real thing. And we work with what we have. Back in 1999, Park County got its first national designation. It's a certified local government, which has provided a lot of grants without needing matches to be able to preserve some of those buildings that you've seen, the Paris Mill, the old courthouse, which I can tell you more about that. We're working on that, to get grants and tax credits for the owners of historic properties. In 2006, Laura Bush gave national recognition by designated as a Preserve America community. There was grants that came with that, and that went away. The designation still holds, but the grants available went away. We took advantage of one of the Preserve America communities to develop some feasibility studies for some of the properties out there. And then we also took advantage of that and became one of 5 heritage tourism promotions by the Colorado Department of Tourism. And then in 2009, Congress designated the heritage area. In that time, we had 3 years to do a study and to develop a management plan. We have a board of advisors and a group of partners, and we had a logo contest. Don't ever do that. Have a professional do that. But we came out well because our logo, you can see it on the side of my vehicle, is a bristlecone. And it was part of somebody's entry. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, the bristlecone is perfect. You know, it's natural resources, it's tenacity, it's been around a long time. So I was real pleased that it came out that way, but it could have been different. Yeah, it could have been we had a series of public meetings. They told us what they wanted. I listened. And again, I'm walking that very thin line about who I target when I'm doing marketing. Who am I reaching out to? The general public. Frankly, the little gal from Texas with her high heels coming in to South Park City is not the happiest person in the world. She doesn't get it. But we can certainly attract the people that do get it and do understand what we have to offer here. One of the biggies is that with this designation, The Park Service is giving us matching money.
Sweet.
So this last year, we started off with $150,000. That took up, a lot of it was taken up with doing the management plan, having a consultant do that. And then we went to $300,000 last year. The potentiality is that we can go to a higher amount. And that has to be matched. But the match with the feds is it can be labor, it can be volunteerism. And we have certainly done that. We can restore, and South Park City has been working hard on the brewery. I still want to convince them to put a brewery in it. And they said, we can't do that, we're a museum. I said, yes, you can. You just don't have to sell it. Let them sell it at every liquor store or every restaurant in Park County. It would be great to have South Park Lager back. That was one of the first breweries in the state. We can protect, and we certainly do. There's 30,000 acres that are under land easements in Park County right now. There may be more, but that's the ones I was able to find out. And thanks to Gary and to GOCO for making some of that happen. We can just isolate. And with the designation, we don't have to do anything. It is our mission to promote as much as people want to do. We could have the promotions of Ladies Run. You guys have the Hondo. We can promote by interpretation. We can promote by reaching out online, advertising, and we can reuse old historic buildings. And I was digging, hoping that I was going to be able to get you a picture. The poor little fallen down building is now fully restored. It will be a railroad museum. So I wanted that picture, and I didn't get into work yesterday, so I didn't get to put it up for you. Recreation, we know the value of recreation and how much deep pockets they have. Education, a way to show people what the life was like in the West and still is. Business development, as you know, in what you've got, your businesses respond and resonate well with the visitors. The galleries seem to do really, really well in Park County.
Any other questions for Linda about the heritage? Well, Linda, thank you very much for coming.
Certainly.
Let me,